Alignment. Alignment is the relation of parts of the whole line of question writing or line of individual letters involves the baseline. It is the adherence of the writing of either a performed, printed, or imaginary basement. Yeah, sasabi po dito na sa alignment, ang alignment po ay yun ay pag-aayon. Ang alignment po ay siyempre yung basic na po sa inyo, pag sinabi alignment, pag-aayon ng sulat dahil ang focus po natin ngayon ay handwritten. Alignment, pag-aayos ng mga bahagi ng buong linya. Yung buong linya kailangan naka-align ang buong linya. Yan sasayang. Height ratios. Height ratios are a comparison or correlation of the height of one letter or letter segment to another letter. Usually, within the same word or signature, one would expect all capital letters in the same writing system to maintain the same height throughout a body of writing. However, the heights of the capital letters in individual writings may from one letter to another. A capital K may always maintain a slight advantage over a capital L or Z or other letters. Ang height ratios po ay isang paghambing o paglalagda ng taas ng isang sulat. Yung may dapat may mas malaki, may maliit. Siyempre, yun po sasabi doon na yan height ratios po, yan yung comparison, yung paghahambing ng letra. Yung may malaki, may may sobrang laki, tapos may sobrang maliit din na hindi mo siya pwedeng pagparehasin ang laki. Okay. The I-dot. A portion of writing as small and innocuous as an I-dot may at times become a prominent identifying characteristic. I does not come in all sizes and shape. They may be horseshoe shape with the open and to right, up, down or left, or be simple dot, circle, or dashes inclined up. Kaya sabi po dito na ang isang bahagi ng pagsusulat bilang yung maliit at walang katuturang bilang, yung I-dot, sabi pong I-dot. Po, ayun yung makita yung mga tuldok with ayun. Die crossing. I-crossing occupy the same weight or more for the document examiner as the I-dot does A. A-crossing may go from right to left, left to right. It may incline up, incline down, or be perfectly horizontal. It may be heavily shaded on the right or heavily shaded on the left. The T may be crossed in the top of the letter, near the bottom, or in the middle. Pin lips. Pin lip is distinguished from hiatus in that there is an obvious appearance of gap in the writing. Generally, pin lips have little significant value because their frequency and location is largely governed by several conditions, such as slow and carefully executed writing may have so many pin lips, while writing done rapidly will exhibit on pin lips. Karaniwan po sa mga pin lips, yan sabi pong pin lips, ang pamitan po sa mga pin lips ay may maliit na halaga sa isang pagsusulat. Dahil ang kanilang dalas at lokasyon ay higit na pinamamahalaan ng ilang mga kondisyon tulad ng yan. Ang sample po yan, slow and carefully execute the writing may have so many pin lips. Sinasabi po dyan ay yung mabagal at maingat. Yung mabagal at maingat na pagsusulat ay maaaring magkaroon ng maraming pinlips. Yun. Nakita nyo ba yung pag kayo nagsusulat? Hindi nga, makikita nyo parang madaming siya. Hindi siya yung isang guhit talaga. Pag mabagal ka, siyempre may ink yung ballpen mo. Yun yung nagpo-focus doon, nagkakaroon ng pinlips. Okay. While writing done rapidly will exhibit on pinlips. Yung sinasabi po na yun, kapag mabilis ka magsulat, yan, naiiwasan yung pinlips. Ito, yung hiatus. Hiatus is gap between strokes. Speed of writing, defective writing instrument may have an influence on the number of position of hiatus. Most people have no fixed writing habits regarding the inclusion of hiatus. It is common to find slowly written specimen handwriting of a particular writer with similar gaps, while another specimen written shortly afterward, which is particularly devoid of hiatus. The presence of hiatus of individual value depend on the letter between the gap occurs. New writers usually raise the pen before the letters A, D, C, G, Q, T. Similarities of this are not evidence of identify without the accompanying other characteristic. However, the similarities in their practical and unconscious characteristic are strong evidence of non-identifying. Speed. Pen speed is often an essential element of the examination process, as will be discussed elsewhere. Fast, fluid pen movement is difficult to duplicate by forgery. Yun, yung sinasabi po, speed. Malaga ang speed sa isang pagsusulat. Diyan po, kung mabilis talagang magsulat, hindi pwede pa mabilis magsulat, magdudoble yung o kakapal yung kuwari sa perma mo. Example lang sa perma. Pag pumarma ka ng sobrang bilis, hindi siya magdudoble yung linya ng perma mo. Dahil kalimitan kasi, pag kay pumarma, tapos medyo makapal yung siya, pwede siyang dayain dahil kahit hindi ma-perfect nung pwede siya dahil yung perma mo, hindi siya yung talagang clear yung kanyang perma. Yun ang kalagahan ng speed. Okay, ito. The following comparison depicts many of the indicator for fast or slow writing. Ito po, ang mga sumusunod na paghahambing ay naglalarawan ng marami sa mga pinahiwatig ng mabilis o mabagal na pagsusulat. Ito, fast, smooth writing movements. Yung sasabi ko sa inyo kanina, kung kalagahan ng speed ng mabilis, talagang maganda na hindi maiwasan mo pa ng forgery yung pagkain ng sulat. Fast, smooth writing movements. Elongated, misplaced eye dots, decrossing. Words and initial connected. A flattened appearance, lessened legibility. Slow, hesitation, tremor, more angular writing. Eye dots and decrossing in correct position. Sharp delineation between separate pen movements. Blunt stop and starts. Writing is made of individual letters and legible. Movements may be ornamental. Hesitation. The regular thickening of the ink line when the writing slow down or stop while the writer takes a stock on the position is termed as hesitation. When a writer concentrates his attention on the movement of his pinpoint, reflex movement of the hand and arm muscle are retarded in the fingers control the pen. Yung makapal na linya. Kapag yung sasabi po dito sa hesitation ito, ang hesitation, yun po yung pag mabagal ang pagsusulat mo, posible na pagkapal ng linya nun. Yung sasabi na makapal na linya kapag ang pagsulat ay mabagal o tumitigil habang ang manunulat ay tumatagal, ang posisyon ay tinatawag na hesitation. Yun nga, hesitation yung pagbagal nung embellishment. Embellishment is most often located at the beginning of the letter, but may throughout the written material. They usually take the form of added movement that decorates the writing, such as swirls, other loops, concentric circle, flourishes, etc. Ang embellishment po ay kadalasang matatagpuan sa simula ng isang sulat o liham. Doon mo makikita ang embellishment. Ngunit maaari din sa buong sulat ng ang mga sampol nga po niyan makikita mo ang embellishment kalimitan sa simula ng isang sulat. Kalimitan niya yung swirls, added loop, concentric circles, flourishes. And next entry, exit strokes. The entry and exit strokes of a letter may repeat themselves in similar letters formation, such as capital U tapos S and B, S, or perhaps M, S, and NS. However, they may be in the form of the beginning or ending embellishment or a continuation of one letter to the next. Entry and exit strokes can be habitual movements and therefore identifying characteristic. Retracing is the process wherein the pen inks a written portion of the line, usually in the opposite direction, such as downward movements, followed by upward movements over the existing line. While it usually is a natural part of the writing experience, if it occurs as a form of patching to correct the form of a letter, it may be indicative of forgery. Retracing po sasabi po dito na retracing ay ang isang proseso kung saan ang pen inks ng isang nakasulat na linya karaniwan ay sa kabaligtaran direksyon, tulad ng isang pababang guhit, tapos nasusundan ng isang pataas na guhit naman, yung spacing. The simple act of spelling words can of themselves be individual in a combination of specific individual. Take for example, the cost of Lithuanian seaman who in the body of question document spelled because, yan, ang sample ito, because kanila B tapos dash cost, shoes, tennis, sweater, and pajamas. Nasabi po dito, ito ang spacing na simpleng pagpapakita ng maling mga salita ay maaaring maging specific individual. Yung halimbawa nga po yan, yung pag sa isang question document, yung pagiging yung sa spelling kasi kailangan kumpleto, tama ang spelling, ang spacing ng iyong paggawa ng kuwari sa question sa isang report investigation. Mahalaga yun. These same spelling errors were found in standard materials that had been dictated to the suspect. Without looking any further, the examiner already had a pretty firm grasp on who the writer or the disputed document was just from the similar misspelling. Format. The format of disputed documents may additionally be an identifying characteristic. Using the personal check as an example, one individual may use the term no send. Yung sa ano po to, example nito is sa cheque. Another may use zero, yung 00 tapos XXX, nakikita mo sa cheque yun. Or perhaps 00 by 100. Sabi po diyan, yung ang pumapasok po yan, yung format na yan, example yan, sa isang cheque. Ang format ng isang dokumentong hindi sinasang-iunan ay maaaring pagtukoy ng mga katangian. Yung sasabi po dito na kung gamit ang isang cheque. Bilang halimbawa yung isang cheque. Maaaring gamitin ng isang tao ang terminong walang sentimo. Maaaring gamitin ng isa pang tao ang zero kumagayaan. O marahil yung panghuli, itong 00 by 100. Hali, sasabi po diyan, yang magdidepende sa tao kung ano yung gagamitin niya, pwede yung gamitin niya. Depende sa format na niya. Dahil sa cheque kasi, minsan kasi na ano yan talaga, ang cheque talaga ang kalimitan na chinecheck lagi dahil sa format niya, paiba-iba. Kaya medyo mahirap ang cheque pa diyan. Tapos next is case. On occasion, a writer will use an uppercase form of a letter in a place usually reserved for the lowercase form or vice versa. This characteristic, if found in both question and standard material, may be highly significant. Ascent, a font's maximum distance above the baseline. Baseline. It is the line upon which the letter of a font rests. Cap height, the height of uppercase letter. Cap line, the imaginary line which represent the uppermost part of capital letter. In some characteristic ascendants, descender lines, the lowest line that a characteristic descender extends to like the line beneath the lowercase I and y. Height. The height of a face lowercase letter or the sign from main line to baseline of the uppercase of the lowercase. The lowercase, yan.
Shading habits in writing can be classified in a general way as follows. Persistent or continuous, as on nearly every downward stroke, where unintentional or accidental, graduated, controlled, smooth, and artistic, as shown gradual increase and decrease of pressure. Impulsive, explosive, bunchy, or the result of sudden and violent pressure. Freakish, or peculiar, or as only on certain parts of words or occasional letters. Rapid or scratchy, as across pen points, lateral or mainly on strokes from left to right. Stub pen shading or on stroke made back to the left, particularly at top of letters. Habits of arrangement. In writing, and general habits of neatness undoubtedly reflect certain individual characteristics that are likely to be shown in whatever is done. Size in writing is a characteristic that may have later significance when applied to to only one example, or the small quality of writing like signature, unless the divergence is very pronounced. Different system of writing differ from each other in size and proportion of parts in certain definite and distinct ways. In their system characteristic and fundamental divergence or similarity may be of great force in differentiating or connecting two writing. The spacing of writing is mainly changed by a change in the slant and, length of the retracing of the upward or connecting stroke. Different system of writing vary in the proportion of height to width of letters. Slant or inclination. Slant refers to the angle of inclination of writing or a letter of writing from the baseline of the writing. It may be forward and leaning to the right or back. If it leans to the left, the slant of writing may change from the beginning of a word to the end of a word, or from the beginning of the sentence, paragraph or page, the end of the sentence, paragraph or page. If this change in slant is reproduced habitually, it may be of itself an identifying characteristic. Often a forward or backhand slant is thought of as indicative of a right-handed or left-handed writer. This is far from definitive, although many left-handed individuals do maintain a backhand slant to their writing, not specific to just lefties. Ang slant na po ay meron siyang dalawang types, which is forward slant and backhand slant. Ang backhand slant daw po ay laging ginagamit ng left-handed na mas nakapanatili po nila ang paggamit ng backhand slant to their writing. Slant would have little or no significance in connection with a trace forgery inquiry. It is obvious that even clumsy forgery of this kind would approximate the slant of a model, except of a part that in the model was very lightly written, and that could not be distinctly seen through the paper. At meron po akong example ng backhand slant and forward slant. Ayan po yung pinagkaiba nilang dalawa. Proportions. Proportions generally refers symmetry of individual's letter using the letter B. As an example, is the top bulb the same size as the bottom bulb? Is one portion of the letter thinner than the other? This concept usually develops a relationship between one portion of the letter to another portion of the same letter. Kinds of writing. One is cursive or conventional, most part are joined together. 2. Script. Disconnected style. 3. Block style. Capitalized or printed. Unit 4. The natural variation of handwriting. Actually, every person has a range of handwriting variation determined by his or her physical writing ability, training in penmanship, and other factors. Lahat daw po na mga babae po o mga balalaki may kanya-kanya pambihira sa pagsulat. To the experienced expert, a study of known samples of writing reveals individual writing characteristics which can allow the expert to identify or exclude individual or author as author of some question writing. Handwriting can be also affected by other factors: injury, illness, medication, drug or alcohol use, stress, the writing surface, the writing instrument, or attempted disguise. Ang ating dapat sulat ay maapektuhan, injury, tsaka medication, or attempted to disguise. It is a job of the document examiner to understand these factors as they might relate to a specific situation, because the primary motor pattern itself, a fluid image, and because there are so many organic and environmental variables that interact in the production of handwriting. Handwriting is a free from activity, and there are infinite number of ways to write. Even the simplest letter combination is highly unlikely that any person will write his or her own name exactly the same way twice in an entire lifetime. Variation of genuine writing. It is true that the genuine writing by the same writer does vary in an examination of question. Writing this phase of the subject should always receive careful attention. The arm, hand, and finger do not constitute an absolutely accurate reproducing machine, like an engraved plate or a printing process. In certain natural divergence and inevitable investigation disclose that even the variation in writing are habitual and personal in any writer is astonished when his peculiar and persistent writing habits are shown by classified and group specific. Variation in genuine writing are ordinarily in superficial parts and in size, proportions, and the degree of care given to the act. Writing as a whole process is very much more fixed that is generally thought to be, and is in fact one of the most permanent and unconscious of human habits. Many writers think that their writing is changeable and radically different at different times, when in the fact that change is only in a few minor characteristics. This change, however, without analysis and careful examination, them at least seem to be very pronounced and fundamental. Fundamental differences or change in style or designs of letters are sometimes attributed to change conditions entirely inconsistent with the results shown. In examining a collection of specimens of handwriting, certain conspicuous variation at once attract our attention. Some of these are: 1. Design, size, proportion, slant, shading, vigor, angularity, roundness, artistic quality, direction of stroke. Individual variation, handwriting. It has been said that any two objects larger than molecular size contain variation, and so it is with handwriting. We never write anything exactly the same. Every time we write slightly different. Ito po yung pagsulat nila na hindi pagkakapare-pares. Lahat po ang susulat nila ay sabi dito na iba. Magkakaiba. Sometimes a little larger, sometimes smaller, faster, slower, and angle, and on and on. Minsan daw po ay maliit or mabilis ang pagsulat, malaki ang pagsulat, o mabagal na pagsulat. Our individual characteristics will be slightly different each and every time we pick up a pen. The parameters of an individual's handwriting are defined by the small changes to individual characteristics. For this reason, the question document examiners requires numerous handwriting specimens to provide a basis for visible, viable comparison to a question writing. External variation in handwriting. Some individuals' handwriting will display little difference in individual characteristics from the time that their handwriting had matured, usually in the late teens or early 20s, until the time they go to the grave. The most individual handwriting will undergo moderate to radical changes throughout a lifetime. These changes, whether seemingly or pictorially extreme, are brought about by any number of factors: age and infirmity, medication, changing eyesight, or perhaps even change in occupations can be catalyst. Understanding what is written in prescriptions may be a sophisticated game between the doctor and the pharmacist. But it is generally agreed that at one time most doctors were capable of writing in a manner that would allow the rest of the literate world to read what they had written. Accountants and police officers may change their handwriting in order to rapidly fit concisely printed lettering and numericals into some spaces on reports or ledger page. The list goes on, identify indefinitely. Tremor. Tremors are rhythmic movement of parts of the body caused by involuntary rhythmic muscles contraction. Deviations from uniform stroke or ordinarily called tremors, which are perfectly apparent without magnifications, are due to lack of skills on the part of the writer, to special consciousness of the writing process, or to the hesitation which is the result of copying or imitating. Tremor is a rhythmic shaking movement in one or more parts of your body. It is involuntary, meaning that you cannot control it. This shaking happens because of muscles, contractions. A tremor is most often in your hands, but it could also affect your arms, head, vocal cords, trunk, and legs. Ang tremor daw po ay isang sakit na nararamdaman ng ating katawan, ng parte ng ating katawan, gaya ng ating kamay, heads, or iba parte ng ating katawan. In fact, in Parkinson's disease, which affects the basal ganglia, a part of the brain, tremor is one of the first symptoms appear. Sabi daw po sa Parkinson's disease, ang tremor daw po ay isang sakit
sa parte ng ating brain, ating utak. At ang tremor daw po ang unang sakit na nag-appear. In Parkinson's disease, the tremor is present at rest decrease when the affected part of the body moves, is increased by stress or emotion, and it in is absence during sleep. It may be treated by drugs. Sabi po dito na ng tremor daw po ay present sa ating katawan. At nababa po ang tsansa kapag nagalaw ang ating katawan and na-increase ang tremor sa ating katawan kapag tayo na-stress or emotions. Nawawala po ito kapag tayo tutulog or nakainom po tayo ng gamot. However, Dr. Wilma Cadiz, a neurologist at Clinica Manila, present special cases where graphology may not be applied. She explained that person's handwriting is altered depending on which part of the brain is damaged. Some patients who have difficulty in oral communication also have difficulty translating their thoughts into written word. Sinasabi po kay Dr. Wilma Cadiz na ang ating pagsulat ay nababago kapag naapektuhan po ang ating utak, ang ating brain ay na-damage. And ang iba pong pasyente ay nahihirapan sa pag-communicate sa ibang tao. And also, nahihirapan din po silang mag-translate ng kanilang gustong iparating sa pagsulat. Nahihirapan po sila sumulat. Kinds of tremor. Tremor of Rudd. The characteristics of tremor of Rudd are inequality in movement at any place, in any stroke or line. With stroke, too strong and vigorous combined with weak, hesitating stroke. Also frequent interruptions in movement, unequal distribution of ink on upward as well as downward strokes, and especially the varying pen pressure due to change in speed and interruptions in movement which may occur in the middle of the direct curves or even in what should be straight line. 2. Tremor of age or extreme weakness. Characteristics of tremor age or of the extreme weakness usually show unusual and erratic departures of the line from its intended course, abrupt recovery, and a general indication of muscular weakness and of movements beyond the control of the writer, particularly in the downward strokes. Genuine weak or decrepit writing frequently shows awkward digressions of distortions, which may be able to imperfect sight and general irregularity caused by involuntary tremors, and is so often characterized by abbreviations of even omissions of parts of letters or even a whole letters. Disguised handwriting. A disguised handwriting is one in which the person has made a deliberate attempt to remove or modify all or some of his normal writing habits. Ito po yung pagbabago ng sulat o pagtanggal ng ibang parte ng sulat. In the majority of cases, all that is achieved is a change and the pictorial appearance of the writing, while the distinguishing characteristics are rarely affected. Indented writing. Indented writing or second page writing is the impression from the writing instrument captured or sheet of paper below the one that contains the original writing. This most often manifest when pads of paper are used. Indented writing can be a source of identification in anonymous note cases and is an invaluable investigation procedure when medical records are suspected of containing alterations. Pagbabago. Detection and deciphering of intended writing. When writer occurs on paper, which is on top of other sheets of paper, indentations of that writing may appear of some of the bottom page depending on the pen pressure. Information determined from this indented writing can reveal incriminating evidence of fraud. Disguise. The individual who is attempting disguise his or her handwriting is trying to produce conviction that they are not accustomed to. Handwriting is, after all, almost an afterthought once the writer is past the formative learning years. Ito po yung individual na sinusubukang baguhin ang kanyang handwriting. Some of the common methods employed by an individual attempting to disguise are easily recognized. Hindi po mga nag-a-attempt ng pagbabago ng sulat ay madali pong i-recognize. Writing very large or very small. Writing very fast or very slow. An exaggerated slant of the writing. Writing of the offhand. Embellish unnatural or unnecessary additions of letters. Heavy pen pressure. Easily gauged visually by indentation depth. Combination of any of the preceding.